Hi everyone, welcome to this very special event. We're having a discussion with Tom Kelly, who is the CEO of Heidi. Thank you so much, Tom, for your time today. Really appreciate you making the time for us today. And can you perhaps give us a bit of an overview of Heidi Health and how psychologists can make use of it?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, David. Thanks so much for having me on. So Heidi's a AI scribe with lots of psychologists using the product today. I think the cool thing is that it's free to generate visit notes, so you can record like 1 hour, 2 hour conversations and create visit notes for free. And we've got lots of flexibility to create different kinds of documents, letters, reports, kind of everything in between. And so I'm a doctor by background and sort of felt the pain of having all the administrative burden of doing clinical medicine, and I obviously did a lot of mental health consults as part of that, so can definitely empathize with what it's like to be a psychologist every day. And yeah, hopefully Heidi's helpful to save me some time at the end of the day.
Fantastic, thank you. Yes, there is a lot of admin, I suppose, across all allied health, and psychologists have a huge amount of
Yeah,
admin in their week.
yeah,
Um,
100%. Yeah, and I think otherwise, like I can show you that in the product, but we spend a lot of time trying to get the voicing right for mental health. Because I think unlike a lot of other specialties, I think the detail and nuance of mental health consults is it's quite difficult because
hmm,
a lot of it isn't always said, like
yeah,
it's not always explicit. It's in the way the patient says it or the pace or
yeah.
the context matters a lot. So yeah, we spent a lot of time trying to make it really good. Yeah, and I can show you some different voice options and a couple of things that we ship to try to make it better.
Sure. Okay, that sounds very interesting. I haven't heard the nuance in the way that would all sort of come together in the system. So I'd be keen to hear how that all looks and see some examples if you happen to have. But
Yeah, for sure.
would you like to go through any kind of demonstrations now, please?
Yeah, of course. Let me just share. So yeah, so this is Heidi. It works pretty well in a web browser. You can use it on mobile web. App's a couple weeks away, and we're working on trying to make it accessible on like all sorts of different devices. But
Yeah.
you can just use it on your phone, just inside of like a web browser, and it
Hmm.
like like this sort of um, the same product, but just kind of shrunken by the size of the browser, so it'll still all work.
Hmm.
So you can transcribe in different languages, basically pick the primary language you think you're going to do. So if you do have other languages, you can just pick different ones.
Hmm.
And you can also upload files. We sometimes get asked that for people who maybe do the transcription on Zoom or somewhere else, and then they come to Heidi to upload it and create their document. Um,
Right. Okay.
yeah. It's not super common. I think sometimes people might use that in a scenario where maybe they don't have the best internet or they're recording, I don't know, in the basement of a hospital, and they might use their phone for the voice memo, obviously with the patient's consent, and then they'll use that recording on Heidi to transcribe and create the downstream notes.
Sure.
Um,
But just to clarify though, like I imagine with Zoom, you'd be able to do it live as well. Like you wouldn't have to do it as a
yeah,
recording for something like Zoom.
yeah, 100%. No, you don't have to. You could just click on for Heidi and do your visit like normal. So I'm going to set up my settings as psychologist. So we have lots of different settings. And depending on what you set up as, you'll have a slightly different note. So I'm just going to save this and
Hmm.
click. Um, and now you'll see my default structure of the psychologist note. But we do have a few different kind of outputs or structures, depends on your system.
Yeah.
So and these all come for free. So everything in this your note section is part of the free product.
Hmm.
And then on this right-hand side is different voices. So I'll show you what they look like in a second.
Sure.
But brief is like very clinically brief, like shorthand, abbreviations of everything.
Right.
Generally, we find psychologists love either detailed or super detailed.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
Super detailed basically is it will try to create quotes from the transcript to support like almost every clinical note or line.
Hmm.
Um, which can be helpful for anything where you're documenting like an MSc or for reports or anything else. It's useful to have like kind of real excerpts.
Right.
Yeah, it's just more lengthy as a document. So I'm going to go
Sure.
through some examples that I have. Let's see, find this one with the lead. So I think let's just regenerate this, see what it writes. So I think this is a presentation with Waleed, my co-founder, who
Hmm.
kind of anxiety. I did the history as more of a medical history, so you can see it's got ECG and bloods and all sorts of things.
Hmm.
But you can see, so in brief, it's brief. It's got complains of instead of
Hmm.
writing the whole words. It's got HX, NAD, like a lot of shorthand.
Hmm.
Do super detailed, it will do a much lengthier note. And in this case, I only recorded for say 40 seconds. So there's only
Sure.
so much detail we can pull
Right.
out. Um, but it
But I imagine this
should,
is quite customizable, right? Like in terms of however you want these headings to be, there's a degree of ability to tweak the headings and
exactly.
customize to your liking.
Yeah, so you can see sort of the session summary, more detailed, 25-year-old male presenting classic signs, etc., etc. And these headings are just our default for that psychologist. But let's say I want to create something else. I've got lots of examples here. I'm just going to close these. Um, so this left-hand side is completely free on Heidi. So
Hmm.
uh, these are the ones that you can experiment, get used to creating documents. And once you're ready to go to a more advanced kind of mode, you can use this right-hand side here. So
Hmm.
there's two things you can do. One is you can sort of ask Heidi for anything. So this is sort of like a prompt. So you can say,
Yeah.
what did the lead say about his chest pain? And it's going to tell me what he said. Tightness associated with flying activities. Okay. Um, and give me some quotes from the lead about anxiety. And so this is flexible for different things. So you can see in this case, yeah, he didn't explicitly say anything about anxiety. Um, or let's say there's a specific template that I want to create. So
Hmm.
I'm going to call this psychology template. And there's a couple of things you can do in these structures. So in round brackets, you can write instructions to Heidi.
Hmm.
I'll show you what that looks like in a second. In square brackets, it's a placeholder. So that's something that Heidi will write into.
Right.
And then in quotation is anything you want verbatim. So this is kind of the things you can do. So I don't know, when you write your notes, David, what are the common headings you use?
Well, I guess it would be, sort of major challenges or life stresses.
Yeah, challenges, life stresses. Uh, what else?
MSc.
Yeah, and sorry, what else?
Well, I mean, I guess there could be goals that you're discussing.
Yeah, that's good. And then maybe impression or plan or assessment or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So, I guess could be plan.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, and then basically the placeholder. So these are kind of my headings. So in placeholder, I'm going to tell Heidi what I want written in here. So maybe group each major challenge discussed under one document. Yeah, and MSc. I'm going to put here an instruction. So fill in a whole MSc below with relevant positives and negatives. And then I'm going to just put the placeholder here. So the reason I write an instruction is because sometimes it just does a better job. But you could just manually write out each section of the MSE. So if you wanted to
Hmm.
do like appearance, and in here put appearance, uh, and then say something like, you know, if not mentioned, um, insert grossly normal or something, for example, we can do that, etc. below.
I imagine that would be something that, say, after the session, one might put your own information in, because much of that might just be the clinician's sort of sense of observation,
Correct.
say visually or otherwise, that might be difficult for AI to pick up.
Exactly. Yeah. So you could have your whole MSE, and a lot of people do this just to fill in kind of whatever their baseline normal is. So it's all filled in with like normal findings, however you like to document it. And then you can go back and edit the sections that you prefer. And then I'm going to put here, create a list of goals. And insert the plan discussed. And
So
then let's
just to
say
be
that,
clear, sorry,
yeah, you go.
I was just going to say, just to be clear, is this based on the transcript or the notes, and also can it extrapolate to what a good plan could be going forward if you're wanting to sort of take it further?
Yeah, so you could ask Heidi, so you could say, extrapolate based on the transcript, a reasonable plan in addition to what is mentioned. So by default, we only only try to recreate what can reasonably be inferred from the conversation. So we try not to add new information, but you
Mhm.
can, if you want, you can create templates that will push Heidi to, come up with a list of reasonable steps for each of the goals, or, add ICD-10 coding, or, whatever you might want.
Sure.
Uh, and this is going to be using the transcript to fill into it. I'm just creating this just to show you how flexible, I guess, it can be. Definitely
Yeah.
takes a little investment, but you can basically get it to write exactly how you want.
Mhm.
And so these verbatim things, maybe I do letter back to GP, let's say, every time. And I also do shared patient explainer, let's say, next steps, and schedule the repeat session in, and then I'm going to put a placeholder time until, because Heidi will just figure out what was discussed.
Mhm.
All right, and then you can also put some overall instructions. So add IC10 codes, where conditions are mentioned. Again, don't know if this is super relevant, but just adding it to
Sure.
show an example. And make this super duper detailed. uh,
Yeah.
Patient quotes for each point where possible. All right, I'm going to save this. And now that will go in my templates.
Hmm.
We can apply this here. There's 40 seconds, so it's maybe a little short. But Heidi will go ahead and write for us. So now you can see it's roughly followed my instructions. So it's got the major challenges. It's filled in a MSE for us. And you can see it's just assumed it's filled in some parts from the conversation. So
Hmm.
when I the lead, he was cooperative, he was clear and coherent. This is taking it from my notes about the fact that the lead seemed anxious, because I said that in my impression.
Hmm.
Um, but you could go back here and fill it in. And it will generally try to take reasonable steps based on the conversation to
Hmm.
assume it can. But you can see here, it's putting grossly normal because I said
Yeah.
do that, you know.
Sure. Sure.
um, and you can see it's added in some goals. And uh, it's also, yeah, consider referral. Yep, and it's included this shared the patient explainer and scheduled a repeat session in 1 week. Um,
Amazing.
so, and it's, kind of infinitely flexible. So if you want, you can save templates for patient explainers or letters or reports. Like we have some, I think some psychologists who specialize in ADHD that have
Hmm.
put the whole diagnostic report, like 2 or 3 pages, into Heidi, and then they'll just fill straight into it. Um,
Right.
Uh, so this is the kind of paid part of Heidi. So usually the way we think of it is like people can start experiencing like this AI tool for free, like get used to it if they like it. and then it's 99.80 a month or 7.99 a year to get the Pro, which will include all the templates and like unlimited usage of this site.
Hmm.
But you don't have to. You can use it for free, and we'll keep it for free forever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
Couple other things maybe just on compliance side. So we do let you uh, delete your sessions. So you can delete your sessions individually, or you can just bulk delete all your sessions. There's a new release that's nearly out in the next week or two that will let you schedule just automated deletion of sessions after a certain period of time.
Okay.
Uh, I can actually show it to you. It's this one.
Hmm.
It's nearly there. This is the new version, nearly
Yeah.
there, nearly live. Yeah, and it'll let you set your own settings. So if you want to
Hmm.
retain it for a day, 7 days, and also if you want to have patient consent or not, you can choose that. So it'll be a little checkbox that you see
Sure.
when you create any session.
Sure.
Um,
So, so I guess just to be clear, what you would do is you would have the session, you would use your template to convert it into notes, but then you would be copying it into a patient management system externally.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, so we are working on integrations so that you could map each of these sections to the electronic record that you use. But for now, yeah, it's sort of a matter of copy and pasting
Hmm.
across. Yeah. What are there common systems that psychologists use?
Yeah, a few I think that are more popular, like Alexi, Clinico, maybe
Yeah,
Core Plus.
cool. Yeah, Clinico and Halcyon are high on our list. So
Yeah.
would have an integration in the next couple months, probably. Um,
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the main time saving will be if you're recording on your phone, it might be a little easy. You just press a button and it'll go back into the right fields.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Wonderful.
But yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's kind of Heidi. And yeah, like it's hard. I know sometimes with these tools it's hard to tell side by side, but we spend heaps of engineering time and effort on the quality of the transcription and the quality of the writing. So
Hmm.
part of the reason for us making it free, it's a really good way to get heaps of feedback, like fast
Hmm.
feedback
Yeah.
on the websites and trying to make the transcription better. So like the most common feedback we get from psychologists is that the notes aren't detailed enough.
Hmm.
So we recently released super detailed and like a fine-tuned model to do large, long consults.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's really, although the tools look similar side by side, just we
Yeah.
generally suggest trying a couple and seeing which ones you like best.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
What about scores? Is there a way
Mm.
that it can handle and navigate if you've been given scores, if you've got assessments that have scores, say cognitive assessments, mental health assessments?
Yeah, so generally the amazing thing about these large models is that they'll generally know the scoring system you're using. So in that right-hand side, if you yeah, create like a depression score system or a like any scoring system,
Yeah.
just by name alone, it will probably know it. So you could just
Hmm.
say, um, like what's a common one? I can show you how you
Like
might
a
do it.
WISC or a WACE.
Yeah, let's just create one. Sorry, what was it? What was the name?
A WISC, WISK, which is a Weschler for children. WIS, sorry, C.
Yeah, that's okay. Um, and I'm gonna say like fill in a whisk score template below. I don't know if this will work, but worth a
Yep.
try.
Sure.
And maybe because you could so obviously go through and actually copy paste like the template you want, but you can
Sure.
just try to one shot. Let's see what it
Yeah.
does. Yeah, it's not gonna like it. Let me try.
Yeah.
Can you do this score for me? Yeah, you might need to actually create the
No,
template.
what I was thinking is more like we would have the scores and
Mm,
you'd have, maybe the discussion from your time with the client, so say before the assessment, and that it could kind of help you with putting together the full report from the scores, from the
Yeah,
the
right.
discussion and any other
Yep.
information you might have. So you wouldn't need to
Uh,
necessarily generate the scores. In fact, it
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
be
yeah.
able to generating the scores wouldn't quite be what we're after with it, I would imagine.
Yeah, right. No, that makes sense. So there's kind of two ways you can add additional context for Heidi at the moment. So one way is through these my additions. So
Right.
you either typing, so you can say like, um, you know, like let's say whisk, and then what would you put in here?
Well, I mean, it
Like,
could be for each of the different composites, you would give the numbers and
yeah,
you would, I guess different kinds of measures people would be using to administer those sort of IQ assessments would come with
mm,
percentiles, would come with
got it.
um,
Yeah, so one other way to do it would be just dictating. So you can always just resume the recording. So trying to remember my depression anxiety scales. It's been too long. I've forgotten. But you could just resume and verbally recite out the findings. So you could say, so like, in play with the child, I noted that XYZ, this is 98th percentile, then this is this percentile. And as long as whatever template you're using has the sections that would fill into, it will generally do a really good job of filling that in. So like a lot of clinicians will, for this case, would add other investigations or other information that is relevant for Heidi to write, but maybe not relevant to the patient. So once the session's over, you can always just click resume and add additional context with your voice and then click stop and it will write again. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, excellent. And I could imagine as well, that if you had anything particular that you found over and over you really wanted it to do with that report, you could just put it into that template and customize it to your liking to be able to say, come up with recommendations or to say, interpret it in a different kind of way to how it might automatically do. You could sort of customize, I would imagine, fairly easily.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Or you could put like the verbatim, just like the basic in all of the sections and then go back and fill the things that are different. Or you could just put placeholders for everything and let Heidi decide.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. 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 It's pretty flexible. Mm.
Awesome. Just coming back to the some of the questions we discussed before, like in terms of Heidi ensuring privacy and security of patient
Yeah.
data, of client data, I should say, and data stored in Australia, can you just perhaps speak to some of that? Because I think those are major concerns for psychologists.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, so that's one thing we've had a head start on. So we've been around since almost 2019. So we've had a head start on compliance. So for security, we have a ISO 27K certification, which is basically like best in class standard security. So that means you encrypt things at rest, you encrypt things in storage, you get externally audited and almost like white hat hacked for any potential uh, insecurities or risks in the way that your data is structured. So yeah, so we've had that for a good year or so now. So otherwise, like everything's stored in compliance with Australian privacy principles. But we actually go above and beyond. So we also sell in Europe and in the US. So we have GDPR and a couple of other requirements. So things like, if you request for your account to be deleted, we'll delete absolutely everything, like nothing will be retained.
Hmm.
It's linked to your account. Um, for patient privacy, so we have non-data retention
Hmm.
policies with all of our processes. So that means basically like while you're recording the session, there's a processing state where the recording is being turned into a transcript. All of our processes don't store the information, so there's no recording like ever being stored of that visit, and all
Hmm.
that remains is that transcript that you can, like I said, delete after you've created your notes. You don't have to retain anything, and
Hmm.
we both as part of GDPR, but just part of our privacy policies, we don't have any access to patient identifiable data. So
Hmm.
there's no way for us to, like, sometimes people say like, can you help me recover the session? And it's like, no, we can't. We can tell if it exists or not, and like some error states, like did it work or like did something go wrong, but we can't actually like look at the content.
Sure.
Um, yeah, so I think like to the extent we can, we do absolutely everything. Like we know that this is as sensitive as it gets, recording that patient clinician conversation is just like very intimate and not something you ever want breached. But feel like we've thought about it sensibly. We've got the highest security standards we can, and we do give the clinicians the options so they can bulk delete all their sessions on a regular basis. And we don't do anything like, secondary commercialization. Sometimes people freak out about our free tier, like they must be selling data or something, but it's not the case. We actually just think it's the best business strategy. Like what we've seen is that it takes a while to get used to using one of these tools. So it just makes sense to us to have a free tier, like a bona fide free product that people can try and use. And then enough people will pay that the maths works. And we've seen that so far, Yeah.
Excellent. And HIPAA compliant as well, I assume?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, HIPAA compliant, even in Canada as well, actually, like all the things like pipe heater and a few other regulations. And yeah, we store all the data in Australia, in Canada, and the UK. So basically, depending on which country you select in onboarding will dictate where your data is stored to be compliant with the region you're in.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about generating reports based on multiple sessions?
Yeah, that is a good ask. So at the moment, we don't have a good way to do it. So you have to either add context from the previous, so you could copy the previous note into additions. But it is something we're working on. So it's highly requested to have like kind of like a patient profile in Heidi. So yeah, it's something we're thinking about because it's a hard one because there's a smallish cohort that keep all the transcripts. So for that group, this would be very useful, but a lot of people don't retain them. So but yeah, it's definitely something we want to do. Like we really like summarizing the previous visit, like a little reminder. You last saw this person 2 weeks ago. Here's what you discussed. Like it just makes you a superhuman doctor or clinician. Or, like remember all the little details and their family, and it's just nice. So yeah, it's definitely something we want to do.
Excellent. I mean, I imagine that kind of thing would be quite dependent on your integrations being fully set up.
Exactly. Yeah. Or it's kind of two ways. One would be that you keep your sessions in Heidi, which is fine. Or you reading previous sessions from the record, which would be great as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Cool. Any other sort of important features you think is worth sort of highlighting that we haven't quite gone through yet? I imagine we've kind of gone through many, but just want to check if there's anything else.
I think maybe just more on general vision, because I think it's good to know where, like for the tools that you use, like what's the story and where do we see this going? So as a company, we're really focused on trying to build, we call it like an AI resident sort of. So everyone roughly knows sort of like what the junior clinicians do in a hospital, following the clinicians around, like maybe a psychologist in training, looking through the records, summarizing the case, finding relevant information. So we're working on things like teaching Heidi how to click into different softwares and automate different tasks that are really time consuming. So integration is one way, but most clinicians use more than one software. Like they'll have to do something on a government website here, and they'll have to find letters on some other service here. And all of that is just administrative burden. So in ideal state, clinician reviews their record in Heidi. Heidi summarizes all of the things you need before the visit. You do your visit, you record on Heidi, click stop. We generate all the downstream documents, even guessing what you want. So, reports and everything, and looking at the record, we know that, they're due for another report. So we just write it. You don't even have to do any configuration. And then after the visit, trying to remind, like giving patients a way to access that. So being able to share and explain our next steps, but with some set of instructions that patients can almost engage with. And really build that kind of AI resident that goes with you. So it doesn't matter what system you're using, or if you move between settings, or use Hallox at one practice and Clinical at another practice, you just bring Heidi with you and it just magically works to save you time. That's the goal. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, it all sounds very, very exciting. Yes.
Maybe one other thing I forgot about was we do personalization. So as you make edits and kind of adjust. Basically, we do learn on an individual user basis what your preferences are. So as we generate notes, we try to write more and more like you,
Hmm.
obviously in a de-identified compliant way. So we're really only storing like the changes you make,
Hmm.
but we're not storing like the whole record or something once you delete it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that's it. There's lots of stuff behind the scenes that doesn't
Yeah,
show up in the product in the feature list, but I do think just general stability and making it work really well, fast, work well on mobile, other things we spent heaps of time on. Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure. And I imagine the terrain changes every 5 minutes, and there's, the constant work on new features and making it more
Yeah.
seamless, able to do more easily. And it's one could get whiplash from the speed things are moving in the AI space, huh?
Yeah. I think a lot of it's like the details, like, if you hit stop and you have no internet, like what happens?
Yeah.
Or if in the middle of the session you lose internet and then you reconnect at the end,
Yeah.
you're halfway through getting the recording uploaded. Like there's just so many edge cases that can go wrong.
I'm sure.
So there's a lot of engineering to make the products really good,
Hmm.
and secure and like structured in the right way. But yeah, we're regularly doing like a few 100,000 sessions a week these days. So yeah, it's pretty stable. Like we wouldn't have more than, I don't know, sub like 0.001% going wrong. So yeah,
Yeah.
sort of 20 or 30 sessions a week. And almost always it's like microphone glitch, unplug, or something like that.
Oh, that's very frustrating, but
Exactly.
but
No, that's okay.
that
It's
sounds
part of
very
the
sorry.
it's part of the fun, like
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, good to hear that overwhelmingly it seems to be pretty
yeah,
consistent.
it wasn't always, like the
Yeah,
era of when it first started, we just couldn't anticipate the kinds of errors you would get.
yeah, of
So
course.
that's the good thing about the free. It helps us find things more quickly.
I was wondering in terms of user training. So if someone does sign up and they're wanting to learn what you were just kind of going through with the template in, maybe a bit slower or maybe just piece by piece, is there some way in which people can kind of go through a training module?
Yeah, so we have a whole help center um, here. So there's a lot of different articles getting started. Let me try and find um, lots of info and different videos and things. But you can always book a one-on-one call with us. So we do, like I think even from when you first start, you'll see two options when you onboard. You can either just try it yourself or
Hmm.
book a time for us to go through it with you.
Right.
Um, and we do have support always on. So you can just message us anytime.
Hmm.
We have like some pre-canned things to help surface resources that might already exist, but you can always just message us and um, yeah, we'll respond usually in a few hours.
Yeah.
Try to respond as fast as possible. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. Might
Okay.
leave that there.